Hey there, you awesome people. I hope your day has been nothing short of fantastic. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Izuku used to be quirkless, but that all changed when he sunk his teeth into an unusual fruit, granting him the power to stretch his body like rubber. With this newfound ability, he's on a quest to become the ultimate hero. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you're totally vibing with this what if scenario, drop me a comment and let your thoughts be known. And while you're at it, don't miss out on other mind-blowing what ifs on this channel. Alright, without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. Ready? Asked Principal Nezu from the speaker in the gym. Yes, sighed Monoma, who was wearing his gym uniform inside Gym Gamma. The reason for this was to test out Monoma's new mutation to his quirk. Ever since his run-in with 9, his quirk had changed. It would have been linked to Quirk awakening, but the mutation was too drastic. It had finally stabilized when they came back from Nabu Island. Instead of being able to stock 4 quirks for 10 minutes, Monoma felt like he was now able to stock 9, though he wasn't sure how long. He felt like it was a lot longer than his previous time, though. Inside the viewing box were Principal Nezu, Vlad King, and Izuku. Principal Nezu was a given, as he was responsible for all students at UA High. Vlad King was there due to being Monoma's homeroom teacher. Izuku had been invited by Nezu to pick his brain, as Nezu was well aware of Izuku's tendency to observe and write down new information about quirks. Having a third young brain who could possibly think outside the box and differently from them was always a welcome. Monoma scoffed at the addition of Izuku, but chose not to comment on it. It was his idea about the hair box that helped Monoma become more versatile without being near allies. In the gym with Monoma were Tetsu, Sen, Hiryu, Niranjeki, Kasei, and Tagere. They were the test subjects for Monoma to copy and test out. Alright, begin, said Nezu, to which Monoma quickly copied quirks. He noticed that he didn't feel as bloated as much when he copied 4 quirks with his previous limit. After he finished copying his classmates' quirks, he began to cycle through them all. I don't feel anything off, said Monoma as he finished with sprouting blades. I guess we just wait for my time limit. We could do that, nodded Nezu before looking over at Izuku, but I believe Midoriya has some suggestions. Izuku cleared his throat before going up. In the past, you could only use 1 quirk at a time, correct? You could combine some, but only after switching quirks. Yay? What's your point? Asked Monoma. Can you use 2 quirks at once? Asked Izuku, like using Tetsu's quirk and Kabara's quirk together to create a steel gyrating attack. And can you temporarily steal a quirk? It would be useful for capturing villains. Monoma blinked as he processed that statement. He quickly complied, using the aforementioned quirks. The result was a steel fist that was gyrating. I'm curious to see if you could combine more than just 2, clarified Izuku. I wanted to ask Shoji if he could swing by, but he was busy with something else. That, and you requested your friends only. Monoma tested out a few more combinations, not feeling his limits yet. Izuku theorized that he could potentially combine 9 quirks into 1 attack, but that it would cut into his time limit. Izuku's theory held true when Monoma felt some of the quirks he had combined fade off earlier than the 1 quirk he had purposely left alone. So 90 minutes total for each quirk. Each combination reduces the timer by 10 minutes per combo. So if Monoma combined them all, then he would only have 10 minutes to work with. Still enough to create a devastating attack if combined correctly, muttered Izuku as he jotted down his notes in his notebook. Alright, should we try Midoriya's other theory in regards to stealing? Said Nezu. Vlad, would you like to volunteer for this part? Gladly, nodded Vlad, noticing his other classmates uneasily looking around about that part of the test. It was understandable that none of them was willing to be the test subject, as a quirk could be considered part of one's soul. However, before Vlad could reach Monoma, Tetsu was already next to Monoma, volunteering to be the test subject. Are you sure? Asked Monoma hesitantly. As Midoriya said, it's unlikely that you can permanently take a quirk. It has a time limit. Plus, even if you do, you can always give it back. I trust you to not be a jerk about that, grinned Tetsu as he thumped his chest with his fist. Monoma slowly nodded as he held up his hand. So, how would I even do this? Izuku hummed for a second before looking over to Nezu, who motioned for him to continue. Imagine pulling something out of him, suggested Izuku helplessly. Kasuma and Mihora's father said that when 9 stole his quirk, it felt like something was being pulled out of his body. Monoma closed his eyes to focus, trying to feel it out. Might I recommend you use the same feeling when you copy quirk and go from there? Recommended Nezu, taking a sip of his tea. Monoma nodded, knowing better than to snark at the principle of UA risk annihilation. No, he wasn't joking, Nezu was that scary. Monoma felt something within Tetsu, like a small bowl. Deciding to test it, he pulled and found himself taking some of it, as if draining a sink. Monoma pulled as much as he could, but found himself only able to take half. Monoma withdrew his hand before activating Tetsu's quirk for himself. Tetsu did the same, frowning as he looked at his hands. Feel any difference? Asked Izuku curiously. It feels weaker, said Tetsu first, like I'm straining myself more than usual to do this. I think I'm using his quirk up to 150%, noted Monoma. Could be the copy plus part of his quirk being stacked together. So you can't steal all of it, but you can weaken someone's quirk, hummed Izuku. That would be useful, especially against rowdy villains. The sudden loss of power in their quirk could shock them enough into submission. Now the question is how long this is sustained. The answer became clear when Monoma's copy of Tetsu's quirk faded after 45 minutes without mixing it with other quirks. Tetsu felt his quirk returning to normal without Monoma having to physically return it to him. Izuku had Monoma then try it out, but returning Tetsu's quirk in just 10 minutes, which worked. Izuku finally finished writing up his notes before presenting it to Monoma. Here, I wrote down some possible combinations that you can use with the quirks available here, said Izuku. Also maybe one to expand into the other student body or even the teachers. Aizawa-sensei would be the best with containment, though only if he lets you. He might not like it since he prefers to stay out of the limelight, and having his quirk standing out might not be the best, though it'll hard to make a connection from him to you, since he's not your homeroom teacher. Monoma slowly took the notebook, glancing down at it before looking back at Izuku before asking, "You sure it's okay for me to take this? Don't you usually need it for your own notes?" "Oh, I already made a copy," grinned Izuku as he suddenly pulled out another notebook. "Wait, what? When did you have time?" Nezu just merely chuckled as he walked away. In Night Eye's office, a certain Minami Aiba was tapping away at a keyboard, her eyes glued to the screen. "What do you have for me?" asked Night Eye as he looked up from his own investigation papers. "About Deku City," replied Minami. "Yes," nodded Night Eye as Bubble Girl served tea, placing a saucer and teacup next to him, before going to Centipeder and Minami, to give them their shares. "Wasn't that the city that was recently attacked by a group of terrorists?" asked Centipeder as he thanked Bubble Girl for the tea. "Why are we investigating that?" asked Bubble Girl. "Seems pretty cut and dry." "Except it's not," said Night Eye, silencing them all. "It's how it was reported. The footage itself seems to have been edited." Nobody responded to that theory. Though it seemed outrageous, they had all learned something. When Night Eye set his side on something and it was wrong, he was usually correct. It was how he managed to help All Might corner All for One, after all. One couldn't expect a man to punch through All for One's empire with just brute force. "He's right," said Minami as she continued typing away at a keyboard. "It's been edited pretty well. Trying to track down the original source now." At Skeptic's office, Skeptic raised his eyebrow as he noticed someone trying to break into their system. It wasn't the first time, but Skeptic shrugged his shoulders as he cracked his fingers. "Time to show them why I'm the #1 master hacker," shouted Skeptic as he began rapidly typing into his keyboard. Back at Night Eye's office. "Ha, not bad," commented Minami lightly as her typing speed slightly increased. "Looks like they noticed me. Will that be any trouble?" asked Night Eye lightly as Centipeder and Bubble Girl looked slightly panicked. "Nope, I've already shifted his route towards one of my empty servers filled with nothing but videos of being rickrolled," shrugged Minami. "I was going to shift him to the server with Ganriki Nico, but I recognized his algorithm. I've hacked into his server before, and it looks like he hasn't even improved or changed up his program. Probably thinks he's so good that he didn't need to change it, even though I hacked into his server as my first test run as a hacker. But just so he doesn't think it's me again, I went with my other server." Skeptic. "Ahaha, you think you're so good," cackled Skeptic as he blasted through firewall after firewall. "Your protection is pretty decent, but nothing to me. I'm already inside your server. Now, to dig up just for you, eh?" Skeptic's monologue was interrupted when a video from the early late 20th century popped up before being played at full volume. Skeptic's eyebrows twitched at seeing a quirkless person performing a song that was well known even to this century, even if it is only known for one purpose only: to troll. What made it more insulting was it was by a quirkless person. Skeptic's roar could be heard around the neighborhood, especially when he couldn't find anything else except that video. Night Eye office. "I'm done," said Minami. "We're in the clear. However, if you want me to get in, I'm going to need more than this stinky laptop you gave me. I need my computers with my programming already installed. That, or better setup." "I will take that into consideration," said Night Eye lightly. Night Eye had to consider whether or not to give Minami more power for her job. It would not bode well if she decided to change sides, all while having access to the government files that she had with Night Eye's access. While Night Eye was considering the proposition, Minami pulled up the latest video of Team Lurkers. She gave a love sigh as she focused not on the trio of heroes in the team, but rather the one sidekick in the background responsible for civilian safety and protection. Though not a glorious position as actually taking a villain into custody, it was enough for some screen time, even if it was just a little. "Oh my gentle Sama," purred Minami as she clipped the video of Danjuro Tobito, before putting it into her folder, which was filled with clips of him. The ex-villain, gentle criminal, now a sidekick to Kamui Woods with a hero name still pending, was wearing a completely different costume as well as a mask, so he wouldn't be exposed to the public as a former villain, albeit not a serious one. Monoma had complained to Gentle once about his position during their time together back at their living quarters, but Gentle calmly explained to her he was happy with the lack of awareness of his surroundings prevented a hero from rescuing a civilian worker when he tried to help, leading to the civilian being seriously injured. While not in the spotlight, Tanjiro was learning on the job. It helped that Kamui Woods was a willing teacher and training partner. Especially since he had teamed up with Deadshot and Mount Lady, Deadshot was willing to give Tanjiro tips every now and then. It'll be a while, but wait for me, La Brava. Soon, I'll be someone you can love and look up to in public too, swore Tanjiro. Back at UA. We're restarting internships, asked Cementus in surprise at a faculty meeting. Why? Especially after what our freshmen have just been through, shouldn't they get a little break? Asked Midnight. Eraser had held back a retort stating that a hero should always be ready, no matter the situation. However, he had to agree that 1A and 1B should be allowed some reprieve, especially after Naboo Island, where the blame could solely be laid upon the Hero Public Safety Commission. It was their idea to send the students to Naboo Island, where they swore it would be safe, without any dangerous criminals. Then they had the bright idea of hiding the news about 9 stealing quirks until it was too late. The students of 1A and 1B ended up having to handle villains that seasoned pros should have taken. They were lucky that they managed to resolve it, but too many students had been injured. Not to mention that the previous statement of the HPSC about internships was merely an on-request basis. For it to suddenly shift into basically an order for all students to attend some sort of internship was a rather drastic shift. It was also a hidden message to the staff of UA something had happened in Dekai City that wasn't being shown, and the HPSC couldn't publicly announce it. Though it was annoying that they couldn't just send a coded message to Nezu. It was just like them to know something, but hoard the information and instead choose to be vague. And again, if one let Nezu have too much information of power, then the rising of the Nezu Empire wouldn't be a joke, and would be one that far surpassed all for one's empire. In any case, preparing for danger has always been a hero's job, said Nezu in finality. We'll reach out to the top heroes. Meanwhile, Izuku was sitting in a private room with Katsuki and Shoto, in regard to the events against 9. So, started Shoto, care to explain that? It felt like some sort of booster-like trigger, but without the side effects. I made sure to get myself checked in the hospital just in case, but there were no signs of the said drug. So it has to be a quirk, but what sort of variant of your quirk allows you to do that? Izuku winced, trying to figure out a way to spin this story, while not actually telling the truth when Katsuki did it for him. Quirks are bullshit, said Katsuki bluntly, causing Shoto to stare at Katsuki. Not everything has to make sense, stated Katsuki, take it and move on. But that doesn't explain why he can transfer power to us, said Shoto slowly. He didn't show this ability before. Why now? It kind of has to deal with what happened back at Kamino Ward, said Izuku, thankfully finding an opportunity that Katsuki had created. When the villain managed to recapture you? Questioned Shoto. Izuku nodded as he answered, All for One was already interested in my quirk beforehand. He wanted me to be a villain like Bakugo, but I said no. He wanted to crush All Might's will, and he warped me to him to try to steal my quirk. But I think something backfired. Maybe he was too injured to do it correctly, but an unexpected side effect is my secondary quirk lets me transfer some of that power to others, like I did before. However, as you can tell, it's not perfect as you were injured from the backlash. Shoto hummed, seeming to accept the explanation for now. Are you sure your biological father isn't All Might by other means? Asked Shoto once more, causing the other two boys to face fault at that question. It took a good chunk of time before convincing Shoto that All Might was not his biological father. After they left though, Shoto went to his room, opening up a secret panel to reveal his little conspiracy wall. Well, All Might being the father was out of the picture, being a stepfather was not. Shoto pinned a photo of Inko before looping some yarn over the pin to connect it to All Might. Izuku was calmly surfing the web, looking at some online stores. Well, as calm as he could be. What the hell do I buy for Christmas presents? Shrieked Izuku mentally. This would be the first Christmas where he had several friends he needed to purchase gifts, not to mention several of them would be his girlfriends. He had spent Christmas mainly with his mother only. The only gifts he sent in the past year were only those close to him, meaning his mother, his master Rikai, Itsuka, and admittedly, the Bakugo family, though not Katsuki himself. Just because he hadn't been on good terms with Katsuki didn't mean he didn't appreciate what Mitsuki and Masaru did for them. Mitsuki would take Inko along on their modeling job, and was her protector against other vicious companies that would exploit Inko, and took no bullshit. Masaru was high enough in the chain to ensure his own company wouldn't do the same. The problem is, what do I buy for them, especially for Momo, who's already rich, sighed Izuku. Momo not only had money to spend, but could make whatever she wanted, too. Even if Izuku was to somehow get her a diamond, Momo could just create one that was probably better in quality than what he could spend. I guess I can only do one thing, sighed Izuku as he got up. He knew only one thing he could do left. Walking into the support studio, he found whom he needed to find. Melissa wasn't in the studio, but Izuku wasn't looking for her for now. Instead, he headed towards one of the most genius and unscrupulous inventors currently hammering away at some new invention. Hatsune greeted Izuku with a dull tone at what he was going to ask. "Oh, it's you," replied May back without really paying attention. "Mr. 10 million, or the one who punched the sky open. What do you need?" "I need you to," started Izuku before taking a deep breath, "help me make some upgrades on some hero costumes." May's ear pricked up, enlarging at that statement before turning around with interest. "Oh? And what do you need upgrading?" asked May. "Why not ask Melissa? You seem so close to her." "She's busy with something else right now, but she did recommend you," replied Izuku. "Plus, the upgrade suggestions aren't for me, but rather for my friends." May frowned. "If it's not for you, then there's no point. I can't just upgrade another student's costume, especially if it doesn't work or if they don't. I'll be your test subject for projects up to Christmas Eve," stated Izuku. "And with that, I can totally throw away what I just said earlier," grinned May with sparkles in her eyes. "Now try out my newest baby." "I hope this doesn't explode in my face," thought Izuku as he put on some sort of weird bracelet. It didn't explode on his face, but it did short circuit and tried to electrocute him. May's next invention did, in fact, blow up in his face when he tested it. Meanwhile, Melissa was actually meeting up with Itsuka and the others to discuss what they had planned for Izuku for Christmas. "I was wondering if Japan had any difference in celebrating Christmas, but it seems quite similar to the US, noted Melissa. "Though Christmas is a more Western holiday, most of the East adapted to it," nodded Momo. "What we need to do is to think of a present for Izuku," declared Ochako before slumping, "but I don't know what to get him. I'm not exactly well off, even though Momo helped my family a lot with construction jobs." "We know Izuku isn't materialistic, Kiro," said Tsuyu as she patted Ochako's back. "If you want, we can think of something together. We know he's a bit of a hero, Ochaku. Maybe we can get something from our internship with Ryuku. I'm sure he'd like that." "That should work well. Melissa and I have something planned together," said Momo, glancing over at Melissa, who nodded. "Looks like you all have something ready," smiled Itsuka. "Ah, we were so busy that we forgot to ask if you wanted to help us," exclaimed Melissa apologetically, but Itsuka waved her hands. "Don't worry about it, I've long decided what I was going to do," replied Itsuka, "though I am going to have to ask you to leave Izuku with me for Christmas Eve." The girls looked at each other in confusion for a second before Tsuyu and Ochako realized just what Itsuka had planned. "You don't mean that?" asked Ochako in a hushed-up voice while Momo and Melissa still looked confused. Itsuka slightly blushed, but coughed into her hands. "I'm probably not going to go that far, maybe, but I would like to further it a little. Consider it being his childhood friend's privilege." While Tsuyu explained what Itsuka had probably planned to the other two, their faces went scarlet. While the four girls blushed, none of them could. "Why are you so confident and willing to take that step?" asked Melissa. Itsuka looked up to the ceiling for a second before replying, "Probably because of our lifestyle." Melissa looked at Itsuka quizzically before Itsuka expanded on it. "We're always risking our lives, being heroes. Though we're just trainees with provisional licenses, we've already been in situations that should have been way over our heads. Especially with Izuku. I don't want to have any regrets or what ifs. I know Izuku, and I doubt I'll ever break up with him. So that's why I'm pressing through." Itsuka giggled. "Plus, it's nothing to what Yui has prepared." The group of girls giggled as they prepared their gifts. Christmas Eve. Toshinori pulled on his collar as he approached the Bakugo household, slightly nervous. "It's alright, come on in," said Inko as she pulled Toshinori along. The two soon entered to see Mitsuki and Masaru already finishing setting up the table. The four of them were having a double date since their respective sons were still living at school. "Let's have some fun," grinned Mitsuki as she pulled out a bottle of wine from somewhere. "Not too much, honey," said Masaru as he gently pulled the bottle of wine away. "Fair, this is one of the only times we get to celebrate without having the brat in the way," pouted Mitsuki as Masaru poured her some wine. "Not how I would describe my Izuku, but it is nice to celebrate Christmas with a date instead of just my son," smiled Inko as she leaned onto Toshinori's arm. The four of them began to celebrate, with Toshinori smiling more and more broadly. This was probably his first Christmas since his retirement that he got to enjoy himself without worry, especially with a fine lady by his side. Soon, Toshinori was back home, well back at the Midoriya apartment, which he considered home. Though they had been discussing about moving to another location, especially since Toshinori had the money to support them even if he was retired. As Toshinori finished his shower, he looked over at his wound on the left side below his chest. It had slowly been healing, especially since he now had his stomach and lung implanted, and with the help of David's healing pot that Melissa operated. He was still prone to spitting out blood, but it had significantly decreased now. Even the wound was starting to fade away, the discoloration turning back to normal. Taking his usual pills, Toshinori put on his boxers, getting ready for bed. As Toshinori got onto the bed, he wondered where Inko was. He chuckled as his mind flashed back towards the end of the dinner. Misuki had been getting frisky with Masaru after having a few cups of wine, and the scary part was Masaru was doing the same. That was a sign to get going. By the time the two of them managed to get out the door with leftovers, Toshinori could have sworn he heard a bell jingling, while Misuki chanted something about taking it off. Toshinori was soon pulled out of his thoughts when he heard the jingle of bells at the doorway. Turning his attention towards it, he soon found himself distracted. Why, you ask? Because Inko was there, wearing a cheap necklace with bells attached to it. However, she was also wearing a very sexy elf outfit that only had a piece of green cloth that barely covered her chest, and a green miniskirt that Toshinori could see she was going commando. Hello there, said Inko with a sultry voice as she walked towards Toshinori, the bells jingling as she walked closer. I seem to have lost your nice naughty list. Would you like to check to see which category I belong to? Respectively, we need to make sure these bells are in working order. There wasn't much talk as Toshinori grabbed Inko, tossing her onto the bed. Late into the night, the sound of bells could be heard jingling all the way. Back at UA Christmas Eve. Izuku gave a tired sigh as he trudged into his room, his body still slightly smoking from the experiments. After being a test subject for May for so many experiments, he was more mentally exhausted than physically. Still, he had accomplished what he needed. Some of the materials requested were a little expensive that was out of his budget, but Toshinori swooped in his time of need and gave him a fairly large budget to use. Not to mention some connections that he could use, too. Thank the heavens I'm done, moaned Izuku as he made it into his room. Grabbing his clothes and shower supplies, Izuku quickly showered, greeting his classmates along the way. Finishing up, Izuku was walking back to the elevators when he saw a text from Itsuka. What does she want? Questioned Izuku as he opened up the text to see that Itsuka wanted to see him in her room. Shrugging and not thinking too much about it, Izuku got back to his room, tossing his stuff into the proper bins, before double-checking his Christmas gifts he was planning to give. Once he was sure everything was secured, Izuku went out to the balcony, sending the text back before closing his eyes for a second. Once he was sure he was floating in the air, Izuku flew over toward Itsuka's room. Izuku checked his phone again, noting Itsuka had told him to wait outside her balcony. After a second, the balcony door opened. Izuku floated inside, landing on the floor softly before noticing Itsuka was making sure her door was locked. Izuku had to shake his head as he noted Itsuka wearing sweat shorts, showcasing her legs. Though Itsuka focused on hand techniques due to her quirk, it didn't mean she slacked off training her lower body. Izuku could see the results, those soft yet muscular thighs that could crush a man's head. Izuku promptly shoved that thought aside. Though if it was him, he would be totally safe with his body composition being rubber, and so. Hey, said Itsuka, causing Izuku to snap out of his thought process. Sorry, what did you need? Asked Izuku as he tried to control his thought process, though what Itsuka was wearing wasn't helping him. Not only was she wearing sweat shorts, but a simple crop top that barely went past her chest, also revealing her toned stomach and arms. What probably caught his attention the most was that her orange hair was actually let down. Just wanted to hang out, just the two of us, said Itsuka as she sat down on her bed, patting the space next to her, gesturing Izuku to sit next to her. We haven't had a private moment for a while. Though the group dates are nice, we want some alone time with the man we're dating. Izuku did so, wondering what was going on. As he sat next to her, he couldn't help but ponder what Itsuka wanted. Before he could do anything, Itsuka raised her hand, touching Izuku's face before guiding it towards her own. The two gazed at each other's eyes before they closed in, giving in to their urges. A simple kiss soon became more as their lust and emotions grew. Soon, Izuku pushed Itsuka down onto the bed, though Itsuka helped pull him down. The two were on Itsuka's bed, breathing heavily as Izuku towered over Itsuka. The couple's hands would keep gliding over skin until Itsuka took matters into her own hands by grabbing Izuku's hand before guiding it right under her crop top, over her chest. Izuku froze, feeling the heat emanating from Itsuka's body, and could clearly feel that Itsuka wasn't wearing a bra. Are you sure? Asked Izuku nervously. Itsuka blushed as she nodded. I want to go farther than before. I'm on the fence about going all the way, so let's just let it play out. Izuku was not one to argue, and he knew Itsuka would be firm when she decided where the line was. Hands went roaming before clothes were tossed over to the floor. Merry Christmas. Class 1A and 1B had decided to combine their Christmas parties together after a bit of discussion. Monoma was most vocal against it, but after some convincing, especially from Yui and Itsuka, Monoma relented, which was the cover story. Thanks to having open access to kitchen supplies from lunch rush, the students were easily able to make something for the Christmas dinner. As to celebrate the holiday, everybody was wearing Christmas clothes generously donated by Momo, with everyone having a custom tassel on the end of their hat. Taking this time to enjoy their little break after being told that their next work studies were mandatory, the group celebrated their precious break. There was some small discussion about their next potential work studies, but it was soon derailed in favor of enjoying themselves. "So, did you do it?" whispered Momo to Itsuka while Ochako and Tsuyu were close by to eavesdrop. "No," said Itsuka with a slight blush. "We decided to stop before that point. Both of us agreed we aren't ready for that." "But," asked Ochako. "At what point and where did you stop?" asked Tsuyu bluntly. Itsuka's blush grew stronger as she took a sip of water. "We took our clothes off and let our hands explore each other. We may have gotten each other off once with said hands." The four of them gave a bright blush before being sidetracked by others to join in the festivities. Meanwhile, Mineta was giving Izuku a suspicious glare, as well as giving Ijiro and Tenya. His pervert jealousy sensors were going off over those two, and he had his suspicions. Meanwhile, Ashido and Denki were busy forcing Katsuki to wear Christmas clothing, since he was close to exploding on them. When Yuri arrived wearing a cute Christmas dress, everyone was instantly on her, especially when she was getting her holiday's greeting incorrectly. Soon, everybody was getting into the Christmas spirit, especially when Kyoka broke out her guitar to sing Christmas songs. When it was time for the random gift exchange, everyone quickly piled their gifts into the middle, while Hanta made tapes to attach to the gifts. Each person randomly chose a tape, not knowing what gift it was attached to. On the count of Katsuki walking away, not wanting to really participate, everyone pulled as soon as the tape on Katsuki's leg went taut. While many laughed or raised an eyebrow at their gift, the Ochako, who managed to get Momo's choice of gift, ended up getting 3 golden ingots. Momo had no idea what an appropriate gift was for the middle-lower class, and ended up creating those. Ochako almost fainted in shock at the expensive gift. It was towards the end of the party, when everyone was cleaning up the plates and decorations, when Shoto approached Katsuki and Izuku. "You two haven't finalized your work studies, right?" asked Shoto. Katsuki only grunted as he wasn't sure if he wanted to head over to Fat Gum again, and Gran Torino was busy. Izuku was still debating on whether he wanted to intern with Night Eye again or find Kamui Woods. "If you haven't made up your mind, then do you want to come with me to work with Endeavor?" suggested Shoto. The two were shocked at the sudden offer and were unable to reply for the night. Izuku sighed as he collapsed onto his bed. Shoto's offer, while out of the blue, was tempting. Working with the current #1 hero would help him grow for sure. But for some reason, Izuku wasn't sure if that was the correct choice. "Akuga would certainly benefit from working there," mused Izuku, "but my fighting style is..." Turning in his bed, Izuku looked over to his desk before smiling. He had exchanged gifts with his girlfriends before the whole party had started. Momo and Melissa had made a new server for him to store all his notes, as well as a scanner. Tsuyu and Ochako had gotten him a signature from Ryuku, as well as a promise to be able to visit her office. As for Itsuka, Izuku couldn't help blushing as he remembered what happened yesterday. Itsuka's body was imprinted in his mind, and it wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Meanwhile, Tenya was getting ready to go to sleep when he heard his phone ring. Looking at it, he noticed it was a message from Yui. "I wonder what she wants," hummed Tenya. Well, not official, there was discussion about actually dating. Especially with what she pulled back on the island. Opening up the message, Tenya saw that it was actually a GIF. Curiously, Tenya clicked play just to see Yui dressed up in ribbons, and nothing else. "Merry Christmas," said Yui before grabbing the ribbon and pulling it while shrinking it, letting Tenya see an uncensored picture of Yui's body. Tenya was sent rocketing into his bed via nosebleed with cracked lenses. Next day. "So, did you have fun?" asked Izuku as he sat with Melissa alone. "It was interesting, especially when students from other departments came in to celebrate," said Melissa, as she took a sip of her hot chocolate. "Today it was just the two of them, as the other girls had their moments with Izuku yesterday." "Did you get a call from, asked Izuku cautiously. "My father is doing well," smiled Melissa as she put her hand onto Izuku's. "There's no need to skirt around that subject. He knows what he did was wrong, and is paying for it. But we managed to talk to each other on Christmas." "That's good to hear," breathed out Izuku, squeezing Melissa's hand gently. Melissa then used her power to create a hand behind Izuku before using the limb to push Izuku's head toward her. Izuku didn't resist, but rather surged forward as his lips met Melissa's. The two made out for a bit before relaxing onto the bench, enjoying the view of snow falling down gently. Just 2 days after the Christmas party, Izuku was visiting the Ryuku agency with Ochako and Tsuyu. "It's nice to actually meet you," laughed Ryuku as she greeted them. "We saw each other during the Yakuza raid, but we didn't really get the chance to talk to each other." "Hello, nice to meet you," said Izuku, slightly nervous as he shook hands with the current #10 hero. "Ah, you came. Are you going to intern with us?" asked Nejire as she floated over to them. "I thought for sure you'd go back to Night Eye's agency with Mirio, and both do power poses." "I'm just visiting," replied Izuku rather frantically. "I thought it'd be nice to see another agency. It has a nice Chinese aesthetic to it, and feels similar to Master Rikai's dojo." "Rikai?" asked Ryuku. "My martial art teacher from when I was young," replied Izuku. "She helped establish my foundations in fighting. She's blind, but she can still easily kick my ass in a fight, even if I'm immune to blunt damage. Sounds like she's someone who'd get along with Rumi, hummed Ryuku. Speaking of which, Ryuko, I'm here, shouted Rumi, hero named Muruko, as she kicked open the door, letting it slam into the wall. Rumi, I said not to kick open my doors, sighed Ryuku as she glanced over to the wall to make sure there wasn't any damage. And what do you need? Some info about that drug bus. Those creeps that I beat up have another base, and I want to crack at it, exclaimed Muruko before noticing the interns. Whoa, when did you start taking boys? Asked Muruko before looking more closely at Izuku. Ah, you're that kid from the sports festival. Battlefist talked about you, exclaimed Muruko. If I knew that Endeavor was going to pull that trick, I would have sent an internship to you. Really? Blinked Izuku in disbelief. Yay, your fight wasn't too bad during the finals, assured Muruko. Izuku smiled before contemplating about something. Ichako and Tsuyu noticed it, and if they strained their hearing, they could hear Izuku starting to mutter under his breath very quietly. Deciding to just have him spit it out, the two slapped Izuku's back to break him out of his little mutter fest. While Izuku didn't feel the pain, he did something that impacted on him, and slightly stumbled forward before deciding to risk it. Is that offer still available? Asked Izuku. Huh? Blinked Muruko as she turned around after getting the information she needed from one of Ryuku's sidekicks. To be a work-study student at your agency, clarified Izuku, your fighting style, especially your kicks and agility, is what I need to help improve my fighting style. Endeavor's ability to fight isn't a question, but it's not something I can learn from and create new moves from. All I would be learning is how he got to be number 2, which would be valuable, but not what I need right now, thought Izuku. You think you can catch up to me? Mocked Muruko. I said your fight wasn't bad, but it didn't impress me that much. I don't do team-ups. I might have sent an internship to Battle Fist, but that was only because I was interested in seeing a girl getting down and dirty like me. What do you have to offer? That said, Muruko certainly wasn't underestimating Izuku. The fact that he was captured by All for One on public television and tried to take his quirk, only for it to backfire, was worthy of attention. Even the HPSC were putting out their feelers for Izuku. Izuku took a deep breath, sighing mentally at what he was going to offer, a living punching bag. Huh? Questioned Muruko with Ryuku and the others giving Izuku a surprised look. My quirk allows me to have a rubber body. That means I'm mostly immune to blunt force damage that even All Might can bypass easily by punching me. Master Rikai has me as her personal dummy for experimenting with different sorts of attacks, because I can live through them without worrying about broken bones. And because I'm a live dummy, I can actually react and try to fight back, letting her know if the move is flawed or not. Not to mention I'm sure you're itching for a good fight where you can use all your strength without worry, theorized Izuku as he pushed forward. Right now is a golden opportunity to really cut loose and show what you can really do. Muruko's foot had started tapping onto the floor, thumping harder and harder as Izuku had went on until she was starting to crack the flooring, forcing Ryuku to stop her. You know, I know you're trying to play me, but I'll take it, but only on a condition, grinned Muruko savagely. Let's see if you can really back up that talk. Ryuku, I'm borrowing your gym. With that, Muruko dragged Izuku to the gym without even getting a confirmation from Ryuku. Come on girls, let's make sure that she doesn't break anything or anyone, sighed Ryuku as she and her interns followed the duo. At Ryuku's gym, Muruko and Izuku were stretching their limbs, preparing to fight while Ryuku and the other watched from the side. Alright, show me what you got, grinned Muruko as she finished her stretches before rushing towards Izuku without warning. Izuku immediately raised his arm, blocking the arc kick to the face from the right. Before Izuku could register the impact, Muruko was already on his left, sending another kick to the waist. Izuku quickly raised his leg, blocking it just in time. Q, so you can tank a bit, grinned Muruko, but that wasn't all of my strength yet. Let's keep going. Izuku was treated to being a pinball for a while, but he was soon able to actually start attacking back. It was like fighting Gran Torino, but with strength comparable to All Might. Not bad, shouted Muruko as she ducked under a kick from Izuku before kicking him in the chest, to which she blocked with a cross arm guard, but it sent him up into the air slightly. Let's see how you tank this. In a full. Muruko slammed a foot from above into Izuku's head, driving him straight to the ground. Izuku shook his head, managing to push himself up and sideways to dodge a follow-up attack from Muruko, who used her other leg to stamp the ground just where his head had been. Izuku quickly took this chance to wrap his arms around Muruko to trap her. Before he could tighten his hold though, Muruko blocked it with splits, halting his arm's path. Her thighs seemed to suddenly bulge a little before Muruko spun in the air, using her core strength and waist. In a ring. Her spin was strong enough to push off Izuku's limbs, as well as launch her away from him. Izuku retracted his arms before firing a punch at Muruko, aiming for right where she would land, hoping to get a hit. Muruko moved as soon as her toe touched the ground, launching herself forward. Dodging the punch, Muruko grabbed onto the arm, pulling herself up onto the arm before landing on the set limb. Without hesitation, she launched herself forward toward Izuku. The force of her launch from Izuku's arm would have left craters in the ground and certainly broken limbs, if not for the fact Izuku's body was made of rubber. Izuku used his other hand, grabbing his head and pulled it backwards and down, stretching his neck just in time to dodge a double flying sideways kick from Maruko. Unexpected, but looks like you weren't joking about being able to tank hits, cackled Maruko as she landed, looking at Izuku's arm that she had launched off of to see it was fine, but that speed of your limbs extending and retracting is too slow. Izuku glanced at his arms, agreeing with that statement. He needed to find a way to speed up that process. However, he did have an alternative for now. Getting into a horse stance, Izuku pushed down, letting the blood flow into his leg before it came back into his body, accelerating the blood flow within his body as he began to emit steam. Without hesitation, Izuku charged in, pulling his arm back. Maruko lifted her leg before forcing it down for a heel kick, just for Izuku's arm to suddenly retract even faster and crash right into her kick. That's interesting, but can you keep up? Shouted Maruko as she began to hop around the room once more, bouncing off the walls. Maruko came slamming down with a heel kick, only for Izuku to disappear from her sight. Maruko's kick slammed into the floor, leaving a rather sizable crater. Her ears twitched as she tracked down Izuku by sound before her instinct screamed at her. Looking up, she saw Izuku coming down at her, spinning in the air as his leg was raised up. Son of a bitch, you copycat. Grinned Maruko as she saw what Izuku was doing. Still, Maruko launched herself upwards, using the recoil from her Lina Ascension. Mesolithic smash. The two attacks crashed into each other, creating a shockwave that caused the audience watching to crouch down, lest they be blown away. Alright, that's enough. Shouted Ryuku, clapping her hands as the two fighters separated from each other. I think he's proven his point, otherwise my practice room is going to need some major rehaul, and you'll be footing the bill, Maruko. Maruko gave a scoff as she began to walk away. Are you alright? Asked Chako as she and Suyu approached Izuku. I'm fine, I'm immune to blunt damage, said Izuku as he shook his leg, but it looks like I couldn't convince her. Maruko stopped at the exit for a second before pulling out a phone from somewhere. Hey. You Midori Izuku, right? Shouted Maruko as she typed something into her phone. I'll be expecting you at my temporary agency I set up to work around this area. After that, we'll be going around random cities. Right, she doesn't have a set agency, dropped Izuku as he realized just what he signed up for. Yes, which is why she comes to mine half the time, deadpanned Ryuku. Despite not having a base of operations besides her home which she makes it her agency, she's still very efficient enough to be the number 5 hero in Japan. Still, you could definitely learn something from her, despite her rather eccentric and compulsive behavior. Hopefully not too much. Ichako and the others giggled at Ryuku's comments. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.